Hey folks, how you doing? So yesterday was National Cinema Day. This is where a lot of the theater chains got together and said, "Hey, let's set up this whatever where tickets were incredibly cheap. I think they were about $3. Popcorn was about $3. I think cheap drinks. It was kind of funny. I think at one of the theaters I went to, a small popcorn was $3, a medium popcorn was $7, and a large tub of popcorn was $4. So guess which one I got. Anyway, I took the opportunity to go see Spider-Man: No Way Home, the more fun stuff version. This was the first time I saw Spider-Man since I saw it last December, where there was overhype on if we were going to see all three Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire, with Andrew Garfield, as well as the current one, Tom Holland. And so I thought it was a perfect opportunity to go see it without all of the hype, without the crowds, because I'll admit it, when I saw the movie back in December, I was excited. The theater was lit, it was hot, and watching the movie, I had a few issues, with the way the movie was told and everything was executed. But at the same time, with the incredibly excitable nature of the theater and the crowd, I was able to overlook a lot of issues that I saw because I was just having so much fun, especially with the cameo with Daredevil, and the introduction of the three Spider-Men and everybody else. Excuse me. And so this time when I watched it, it was early in the morning, it was about 10 o'clock in the morning. I'd say maybe 10 people in the entire theater. And so, there was no hot crowd, there was no cheering, there was no yelling and laughing, like crazy. Which I'll have to admit, going to a hot theater crowd makes enjoying a movie that much better. Anyway. Alright. So, I saw this movie again. And I'll have to admit, Spider-Man: No Way Home is the best, worst movie I've seen in a long time. Probably since Avengers Endgame. And what I mean by that is, it's a movie where it's chock full of problems. It's full of issues. But I still I still enjoyed the movie overall. And that's what I mean. And when I say chock full of problems, anywhere from obvious continuity errors. Probably my biggest issue is just, I won't say plot holes, but just problems I have with the movie with its execution. And, and the overall story just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And I'll give examples of other movies where it was bad execution, doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but it took away from my enjoyment of the movie. Perfect example would be Fast 9, where you have, Toretto swinging on a vine with his car, and you just go, okay, this is ridiculous. And you're 15 minutes into the movie, and you're just thinking to yourself, okay, this is the beginning of the movie, how does it get worse? And it does get worse to the point where you're not enjoying the movie. Ambulance, where everybody's chasing after each other in every different direction and everybody crashes into each other. It just gets to a level of ridiculousness. In this movie, there's just a lot of things where you're so busy enjoying the fact that the three Spider-Men are together, you overlook all of the other incredibly obvious plot holes or contrivances that you just kind of ignore because you're just enjoying the moment. And so that's where I did enjoy those moments again watching this movie. But, sitting down and watching and thinking about it for more than, a minute, you go, yeah, this movie isn't a very good movie. Probably another example of a movie that I thought wasn't a very good movie, but I enjoy watching is Encanto, where the music is great, the sight and sounds are great, but the movie itself isn't all that great. All right, I'm not gonna recap the entire plot, but just to give an example of some of the issues I have. Um, Earlier on, when we get the introduction of Doctor Octopus, and he attacks, our current Spider-Man. They're under the bridge. He has Spider-Man upside down. One of his octopus arms rips, part of the suit off, and we see, a huge gaping hole, suit hole, in Tom Holland's chest. Well, later on, like the next shot, like 10 seconds later, the suit is absolutely complete. And I couldn't help but notice it. It was something I couldn't unsee. But then about 30 seconds later, when they're on top of the bridge talking, the gaping hole in the chest is back there. It has returned. So it's one of those things where I have a feeling the VFX teams, since they use so many, just didn't really pay attention and it got past the director. So that's one of the minor things. Probably the biggest issue I have with Spider-Man No Way Home is where they introduce the villains in epic fashion. Dr. Octopus comes up, he knocks all the cars over and causes a huge, issue, and, it's a huge event. Green Goblin, throws one of his grenades, blows things up. Huge event. We get an introduction of Electro and Sandman. He's out in the middle of nowhere, sucking up energy and, making a huge deal. But when we introduce the two Spider-Man, it's so lackluster and anticlimactic. Just, when the two friends, Ned and MJ, they open a portal and Andrew Garfield Spider-Man just kind of walks through and, hey, and then they open another portal and Tobey Maguire just kind of walks, goes, hi. I'm like, oh wait a second. could you have just made these guys just more boring introducing these guys? Now I remember back in December when these guys were introduced. As soon as we saw their faces, the whole crowd went absolutely nuts. We're cheering, we're clapping, we're going, yay! And it's nice to see Andrew Garfield after, 10 or so years and Tobey Maguire after 20 years. And so, you're kind of just in the moment. But, yeah, upon repeat viewing, just seeing these guys just, hey, it's like, you could have brought these guys in a little more more bravado. Just an idea of maybe, Spider-Man when he was fighting, Dr. Octopus and they're on the bridge and they're fighting. All of a sudden, another web shows up and we see the other Spider-Man. It's like, oh, wow, and that would have been cool. Maybe when he was fighting Electro and he didn't know what to do, the other Spider-Man shows up. He's like, the Andrew Garfield, Spider-Man shows up. Excuse me. And, we could have had more epic moments. Anyway, that was kind of my biggest issue right there. It's just the introduction of the other Spider-Man. It was just very ho-hum overall. And probably my other issue was, this Spider-Man had decided, hey, he wants to help these guys, give these guys a second chance, and he wants to cure everybody. For some reason, Sandman decides he wants to still be a bad guy, even though he wants to get back to his daughter. So his whole thing didn't make a whole lot of sense. Whatever. But the three Spider-Men, find solutions to everybody's problems in a matter of like an afternoon in the high school chemistry lab. I thought about it for about a minute and I just went, you know what, whatever. I could dig it, but really, you have Green Goblin, who's, had a huge super serum, big lab, big multi-billion-dollar company, create the problem. You had Electro, caused by a huge big company, billion-dollar company. You had, Kurt Connors, he was a high school teacher, so I could live with that. But you had Sandman, whose issue was caused by a huge multi-billion-dollar company, super collider, or what have you. And these guys solve it all in the afternoon. And with a couple of basic chemicals. Because I presume, other than a few beakers and a few Bunsen burners, there's probably not much more in your local high school chemistry. I haven't been in high school in quite some time. Maybe high schools are way more advanced than I remember them to be, but I would have the impression that they would need a little bit more than a couple of test tubes and some hydrogen peroxide or or what have you. Anyway, that's just me thinking. I thought that was kind of a stretch, but once again, I enjoyed the movie the first time. I enjoyed the movie the second time, but the movie itself has its share of issues. That's all I'm saying. As far as the more stuff version, it was just more fluff. A lot of stuff that could have been cut out, and obviously was from the original theatrical version. It was a lot of scenes, in the high school where the students and the teachers were dealing with Peter Parker being Spider-Man and what have you. It was a lot of that. Kind of funny, kind of enjoyable, but overall, just not. It made like it says, it made the movie more fun, not as depressing and downer. But all in all, it was an enjoyable experience. I enjoyed seeing both the original and this one. It's kind of hard to tell the difference between the two, but there was nothing overly obvious that this made this movie so much different. It's basically the same movie. So that's all I had to say about Spider-Man No Way Home, the more fun stuff version. Once again, it's the best, worst movie that I've seen in a long time. But that's all I had to say about this movie. Did you guys have a chance to see Spider-Man No Way Home, the more fun stuff version? Tell me what you think. Did you enjoy the movies? Did you have the same issues with the movie that I did? Let me know. Post in the comments below. If you like what I had to say, hit that thumbs up button. If you want to hear more what I have to say when it comes to movies or video games or anything else I feel like yammering about, you can always subscribe. And I'll talk to you guys next time. Peace.